Travis Schmidt is a broker with Benefit Solutions Northwest, and they are our luncheon sponsor, or our meeting sponsor today, I should say. And I would like to have Travis talk a little bit about the Benefit Solutions and what they have coming up this year. So welcome, Travis.
Hi, everybody. Well, as you stated, we are Benefit Solutions Northwest, and we're just a local brokerage in the area that we actually specialize in assisting you guys in your guys' medical packages that you have for your business. So that includes medical, dental, vision. We do know people that could help out with some retirement benefits as well. But basically what we've been working on is just kind of meeting up with you, planning a time to sit down and really find out what's important to you as the owner, and then also trying to find affordable coverage for your employees, because we're trying to get custom tailored plans that can ultimately save as much of our clients as about anywhere between $5,000 to $12,000 a year in your premiums, which is a lot of money, especially with COVID going on right now. For our businesses to save that kind of money is really important. But we're also trying to just enrich the benefits for your guys and your employees as well. So just really making sure they're getting the most of what you guys currently have, or if we can find you something better, and just making sure that they're safe during this COVID time and all the stress going on, that they can see their doctors and get the best possible care that they can. So I don't know if there's any questions though that anybody has specifically for me, but I know I've reached out to a few people in the chamber already, trying to see what we can do for you. The biggest thing is just sitting down to find out what coverage you guys currently have. What we specialize in, and I do want to let you guys know, it's called level funded, which is really unique to you guys as small businesses, or even if you're a little bit larger. But it's a personal plan for your business, so it's tailored specifically to you guys. And I have a lot of information about that. If you guys want to call me up, we have our Benefit Solutions Northwest website that you can go on to see that as well. But really, I'm just trying to see if we can get some meetings going with each and every one of you, if you guys are willing, and we can talk about your options. I don't know if with everybody here is on mute right now, but does anybody have specific questions for us?
Sean just has a comment. Thank you, Benefit Solutions Northwest, for sponsoring the Zoom meeting today. Yes. If there are any questions at the end of the program, maybe, Travis, we can get you guys connected. Will that work?
We can absolutely do that.
Okay, sounds good. Great. Well, thank you so much once again, Travis, and you're a new face to us, so we're glad you're with us, and I hope to see a lot more of you.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the COVID to get over so we can actually attend the meetings, and I'd like to meet a lot of people face to face if possible.
Yeah, I think everyone's ready. I think everyone's ready for that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thanks again. Well, I would like to introduce our guest speaker today. Dr. Ali Modarres is here to, first of all, you read the pedigree that I sent to everyone in my email, so I'm not gonna go into a recitation of that, but he is the director of urban studies at the University of Washington, Tacoma. And when I asked Dr. Modarres, first of all, about a prelude to our economy in 2021, I think he rather chuckled and said that there are analysis that he can provide, and that we can look at certain sectors of business and of our economy, and then talk a little bit about growth expectations and skill sets that will be required as we look towards the future of the post pandemic economy. Is that about right, Doctor?
Yes.
Okay, well then, without further ado, I would like to introduce and welcome Dr. Modarres to our group today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you. So one of the things I mentioned to Linda, there are two parts. And by the way, call me Ali. When you call me the doctor, I feel like I'm in Doctor Who series. So
okay, good enough. Good enough.
It's a very difficult time for us in terms of economies, and in every region is a little bit different. So having a crystal ball would be great, but none of us have it. So what I'm going to do today is to talk a little bit about what happened in 2020. So some of the data that's coming out for the 2020 economic landscape, you might be interested in. By the way, Linda, I noticed that the session is being recorded. Did you start that? Oh, okay. I just want to make sure it was intentional and it wasn't something that was happening on its own.
No, actually, I would like to capture your pearls of wisdom if that's all right with you.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. So anyway, basically, the way we look at the region is that it is performance across time and typically projecting it into the future. The problem is that the numbers that we have for a region are always pre-COVID, and post-COVID, what we have is the early part of it, the impact that it has. So I'm going to try to include some of that information for you, but then I'm going to tell you what are some of the upcoming research that suggests where Pierce County could be going. So my talk is at the Pierce County level. I found out about this session too late for me to do a Lakewood specific presentation for you, but I'll hit on a couple of issues with you so you can take a, think about that. So I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind. Do we all see this?
Yes.
Okay. So at the higher level, let me talk a couple of things about things that have changed over time. Between 2015 and 2020, population of our county increased by 8.9%, or about 75,000 people. And what I have to say about that one is that when we look at the point of origin based on 2018, 2019, the highest likelihood of this population increase is not from national level to us, but specifically from King County, the highest level. And the remainder comes from Puget Sound, most of it. Population, we expect it to grow by another 5.4% between 2020 and 2025, which means another 50,000 added to the population. The challenge here, of course, is going to be that of housing. In other words, we are going to see demand for housing and a number of other service-oriented work that needs to be done. In terms of jobs, we did really well between 2015 and 2020. Jobs increased by 9.7%. This is higher than the national growth rate of 6.2%. So Pierce County has been on trajectory for a growing number of jobs. There are a couple of things about our population that we have to keep in mind. Given the nature of our migration and mobility that we see in the region, it is not a surprise that we have more millennials than typically an area of our size would have. We also are, because we are attracting largely 25 to 39 and younger families, we don't have what's called a retirement risk, meaning population 55 and over. I think I am a retirement risk. That's what I am. So people in my age category are much smaller compared to the national level. Racial diversity is still low, but increasing. And as you know, from Lakewood, veteran population is quite high compared to regions similar to us. These are all opportunities for us to be thinking about. In terms of degree and educational attainment, we are behind national average. We are still low on the number of bachelor's degree, and associate degrees are a little bit higher. However, with the universities in our region, we will be going up. And the reason I bring this up is that I want you to know that when companies look at regions to move in addition to land value and rental and all that, they look at the demography of the region. And these demographic indicators are important to them based on the sector of economy they're in. In terms of educational level, if you want to see the details of it, looking at the job market requirement in our area on educational attainment, you can see the mismatch here, that we still need a little bit more in the college education category. Even though in bachelor's degree, we are kind of okay there, but we need a little bit more. I'm going to slow down with the tables because you have to have a chance to see what these numbers mean and what they look like. This table is an overview of the economy, and I have put down specifically all the counties in our area and the state numbers so you can see where we stand. So for Pierce County, we are about less than half of the size of King County. However, our labor force is about a third. Our jobs are about 1/5. Our cost of living is lower, but 14% above the national level. And as when we compare ourselves to folks around us, yes, we are an important economy. However, King County makes up roughly about a third. And if you look at in terms of GRP, about just about half of the GRP of the state. So one county essentially has all the economy practically of the state. And this is changing gradually, but not fast enough. However, I have some positive stuff to say at the end. So don't dwell on these numbers too much. In terms of unemployment, and I know that you have seen the numbers coming out, we did really badly, of course, at the initial part of COVID impact. So for the first 6 months of the year, our unemployment rate was close to 11%, but by October, we had done much better and the numbers were leveling off a little bit. But still, we need to improve on this one because Pierce County historically has had unemployment rates that are a little bit higher than King and also not comparable to the nation as a whole. In terms of our county's economic landscape, about a third of our firms are firms of 1 to 4 employees. We are largely small firm region. So that's the nature of our work. So if you look at 19 employees or less, you're really looking at most of this pie chart. And as the number begins to go up, the size of the firms that we have, they're large firms. They're not highly present here. It's not a bad thing. All it means is that this region is more entrepreneurial and tends to attract smaller firms. And also, it could be an opportunity for a lot of subcontracting capabilities. So we will look into some of this as we go through the data. So I want you to remember this because I've been talking about this for about 6-7 years. We always focus on getting the largest companies to our region, but our region seems to be thriving on smaller size firms. So on this one, I'm going to take a little bit of time so you can go through the data here a little bit more. So the green bars are 2015 jobs. The red bars are 2020, and the national average is gray. So and they're ordered by the size of the industry. The largest, basically, number of jobs for us is in government, in healthcare, then retail and construction and accommodation and food services. So you can see where that goes, how that works. So because we have military presence and we have a number of other governmental agencies in the region, we tend to have disproportionately much larger compared to national average for an area of our size. And that has been ticking up a little bit. Healthcare has been growing. You can see the red on the healthcare is much higher than the green. We are proportionally becoming more healthcare oriented even compared to the national average, which is great. In retail, we are just about the national average. In construction, we have a higher presence. And in accommodation and food, we are lower. So you can see the pattern of what happens. When we go up the numbers, I want you to notice what happens because I will come back to this. For example, in information, in educational services, in finance, and so on, they become much smaller portion. The one that's kind of interesting is the professional, scientific, and technical services, which we are kind of small, however, compared to the national average. Notice the national average is twice as much. So we are about half of the national average for an area of our size, but still we are growing gradually. So the red in the middle, I'm going to see if I can move my cursor so you can see which one I'm talking about, this one. So here's the national average. Here's where we are in 2020, and this is where we were in 2015. So we are growing. However, we are not catching up with the national average yet with that. Okay, so actual numbers, so you can see it, and I wanted to show you a little something about the earnings of the workers in these categories. So we have 2015 jobs, 2020 jobs, national average for those jobs, and that LQ means do you have overrepresentation? If the value is over 1, it means we have over representation of that industry in Pierce County. And the last one is the 2020 earnings per worker. Notice in the government area, we, of course, as we saw, we are overrepresenting. In healthcare, the same. However, in construction is the same. But if you go down, what I wanted to show you is in the latter part when I talked about the information category. Notice that even though we have seen some changes, we have 2,494 jobs, whereas the average national is 7,000. And at 0.35 means we need significant growth in that area in order to catch up with not only the region as a whole, but also to the national average. So basically what this means is that there are certain categories in which, even though we have aspirations, we have long ways to go. In professional, scientific, and technical services, we are basically about half for the national average in that category for an area of our size. So as the numbers in these categories begin to increase, and notice the salaries or the earnings, the total revenue or total income of the region begins to go up also. So it's imperative that we look at these as a way of plotting our economic development agenda. In terms of job changes and where things are, the rate of growth, and these are the same numbers, I just wanted you to see the last column. Our highest rate of growth has been in transportation and warehousing, administrative and support and waste management, construction, real estate and rental and leasing a little bit, but these are numbers that we've been, about. Notice the healthcare industry's growth is about 14%. So these are the kind of things that are happening. In manufacturing, we are not growing, and that's basically the overall sense of the place. Now, the top companies in terms of hiring for us, in terms of their profile, is U.S. Army, Boeing, Multicare Health System, State of Washington, Franciscan, United States Department of Air Force, Bethel School District, Puyallup School District, Tacoma Public School District, and City of Tacoma. Now you can see how many of these are governments. Now, in terms of job posting or unique job posting, we have Amazon, Multicare. Amazon basically would be in warehousing there, Multicare, and then we have a series of other firms. So in terms of job posting, we're seeing a little bit higher presence of non-governmental sectors there. Occupations, which is now we're focusing on the workers. For occupations, again, the same thing. 2015 jobs are in blue, 2020 are in orangish color, and national average is gray. And you can see how we are doing in different categories. Military is one of the ones that, and I'm going to move my cursor so you can see which I'm talking about. This would be the national average for an area of our size, and we're significantly more. Of course, Lakewood knows all about that. I don't need to tell you about it. But in terms of the largest job sectors, I want to show you something here, and that then translated to COVID-19 impact. Do you notice that starting with the third largest category of occupations, sales, food prep, we are dealing with the two occupations that were impacted the most in terms of unemployment filing in our county after COVID started. So if you look at March through June data for this, and by the way, that data is on our website on campus. I'm happy to share the URL with you. Becky may have seen that already. There's a comparison of Pierce County and King County in terms of unemployment filing by sectors. Those are the two, the largest one that were impacted. So this is the kind of image that we want to keep in front of us as we begin to deal with additional issues. So 2015, 2020 job, again, this is the same, what was the graph in form of a table. And what I'm putting next to it is the number of job postings between January 2020 and December 2020, unique average monthly postings of what you've been seeing. Healthcare, of course, is the highest one, is at about 5,000 posting. But some of the larger ones that we are putting up, their hourly earning is not very high, which essentially means that we are still not really looking at 2,000. If you take an hourly earning and multiply by 2,000, that's usually about your annual salary. So we're talking about, if you have at $20, That's about $40,000 before you deduct taxes. So this is your before taxes income. So essentially, what we are seeing, with the exception of management, which we had 1,400 and so, the hourly rates of most of the jobs that we have seen job postings that are relatively low. In terms of in-demand skills, these are the sort of things that we have seen in job postings, purely based on job postings. Nursing is, of course, the most, and as I have already mentioned, and you got a sense of it, warehousing, basic life support, merchandising, again, health-related profession, selling, auditing, accounting, advanced cardiovascular, again, another health, and then restaurant operations. Now, I want you to notice the gray lines. This is what the national average for in-demand skills are for every one of these. So we have our demand for nursing, warehousing, basic life support, merchandising. Merchandising is just a little bit, but also again in the CPR category and then ACLS category, we need a lot of help in that area, and that's why the job postings reflect. Our job postings for merchandising, for selling, for auditing, for accounting, for restaurants has declined. It's below national average, which means, again, indicates the impact that we have seen since COVID. Okay. Now, a couple of things about movement of workers before COVID, and then I will tell you something about what has happened since. So the cities with net gain of daily workers are Tacoma, Lakewood, Fife, and Sumner. So you fall into that category, and primarily for the kind of composition that you have in proximity to military base. Almost all other cities in Pierce County are net exporters of workers. So every morning people actually leave that area to go somewhere else. If you are interested in knowing how many, and net is very important for us. So we look at it profession by profession to see how many resident workers we have in this profession and how many jobs there are for this profession. And the difference is the net exportation. So the net export for us, we have about 70,000 people who, if everybody else had every job in the county, in other words, the job that they wanted, they actually worked here, we would have only 70,000 net commuters. But because some people earn more in other places, they leave. So that number doubles when we look at commute population. So that's one of the issues that we have to deal with. Now, in terms of who is leaving our region, or where are mismatches between resident workers and jobs, these are the categories for which we are net exporting population. In software development, the largest category. In customer service, in retail, even retail, we are exporting population because we have excess number of people who work in retail. We don't have enough retail in that area. But everything that you see in red is the number of people who actually have to leave their area in order to work somewhere else based on skills that you have and occupation that they have. Notice that when you have 2,350 people leaving, their median hourly earning is almost $60 an hour. When you have general and operation managers leaving, you're looking at an hourly rate of $52. So what we are really seeing is that we have become, remember the millennial population? We have become the resident places for a lot of workers that work regionally. However, they live here. So which means we have this sort of an imbalance between the economy of Pierce County and other counties compared to King County. And we have the imbalance in terms of number of jobs and who lives where. So there's a mismatch in our population, which is quite embedded in that. So if I could, I'm going to stop sharing so I can talk to you about the promise of the future. So last summer, I've been sort of keeping track of things to see. So if people are not commuting, are they still working? Yes, they are. Bureau of Transportation Statistics publishes data on the number of people who work at home and number of people who actually travel somewhere to do their work. Well, last summer, the exact number that we call net commuter, about 70,000 people in Pierce County actually worked from home. So their data suggested that when things became remote, they were able to work locally. Now, there's a second number that I have to give you. So over last summer, there was a research done nationally on thousands of job categories to see post-COVID, what percent of jobs in the United States could be done from home? Are we going to, after 1 year, create new kind of culture? Because firms are discovering that they can save money by not being in high rental places in downtowns, like Seattle downtown or San Francisco downtown, or all those categories. So when this national study was done, the number that came up is roughly about 40% of all workers in the US can potentially work from home. Second survey was done with the workers to see how many of you would like to work at home. A large number of people said, I like to work. Yeah, I saw another hand go up here. So the percentage just increased. And so what you would see is that most people said, quite a few people said, yes, I want to do it, but a significant number said 2 to 3 days a week. So here's what we combined. So I took the national study last summer and translated it to Pierce County to see, okay, well, our job profile is not the same. So what happens for us? Because the national profile is very different. Well, for us, it translates to only 30% of our population, but that 30% covers our net commuters. Now, message here. The message here is the following. We have a millennial population that wants to live in Pierce County, who is capable of working remotely. How can we accommodate that with a new way of thinking of distributions of jobs throughout the region, number one. Number two, work centers or employment or shared spaces where people can work. Now, why am I not saying working from home, but shared spaces? Because also the same survey suggested that millennials, once schools are open, they want to be able to be away from home when they work, but they don't want to commute 30 miles to work. So essentially means if there are local work centers, they would be keen on working in those places, right? These are shared offices kind of things that will emerge. So, and the larger companies are going to look around to see where they can go. Second part of the equation. So we have skills. We have skills that can move. They don't need to commute physically, and therefore they're willing to work. There's a second part to the research. Which cities are capable of having that high level regionally, not just Tacoma or Seattle, San Francisco and the Palo Alto region, the Bay Area. Those are that level of study. Well, the national study suggested that large metro areas with number of medium-sized cities will do best in post-COVID because their labor is local. Local meaning only 20 or 30 miles away, which means if you need an office meeting, they can come in. But if you don't need an office meeting, they can actually work from where they are, which means our county is positioned to actually reduce its environmental impact, health impact through reducing commuting, but also increase employment locally, meaning that people work locally. I would suggest that there is a final piece to this, and that is cities like Lakewood, Puyallup, Tacoma, Fife, and others need to begin to think about creating purposeful, targeted, strategic employment center, meaning trying to attract these new companies that are looking for satellite around the larger downtowns to begin to be targeting these employment centers. Because what would happen, it would kind of create that balance. So we still are not relying jobs in Seattle, even if you are remotely doing that work, but jobs locally in the branch offices even of some of the companies that are in the central part of the city. So there's a new hope that post-COVID, we will see the economic landscape shift and commercial real estate needs shift and housing needs shift because most millennials don't want large houses. So they are going to begin to look to see what kind of mix and type of housing we have. But with that said, I want to throw a policy question at you. You're not responsible for that, but it's good to think about it. Imagine in 2022, we finally are at the point where we have reduced nationally and locally our commute level. Our excise taxes will be inadequate for maintaining freeways. We have yet another transportation policy to deal with down the road. So everything I've told you is about the economy. The second part of it, which is about the environment, which is a good thing. The third part of it is some policy shifts after 2022, because we have to begin to think about if we truly do what we say in surveys. In other words, if people said that they were going to work at home, then they get to do it. And the employers are saying now that they will allow their workers to work at home. So all of that, or work remotely, all of that means that if everybody does exactly what they say, and 2 years from now, everybody has not forgotten what happened, then we have a different kind of economy and different opportunity that we can deal with. And Lakewood and Tacoma and Sumner and Puyallup and others are in absolutely perfect positions to begin to attract that new economy. And with that, I'll stop, because I think I have talked my half hour that I promised Linda. Any questions for me? I know it's just a number dump, so I'm happy to answer questions.
Would you be willing to share your slides?
I will be. What I do actually is a little different. I post them on the website, and you can actually link to them, and I'll send you the link.
Thank you. I was trying to take notes, but couldn't keep up.
Me neither. There's too many numbers.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So Dr. Ali, what do you think are going to be the primary skill sets that we're going to be looking for, the top 5, for example, that we will be looking for in our future economy?
I think healthcare-wise, you're going to be still needing workers. So there's going to be a growth in the healthcare industry. One of the things that has happened during COVID, so I'm told, and talking to folks who are in the industry, is that the same way that we're increasing the numbers, there has been also layoffs in that sector, meaning that specific specialties that were not needed during this time, they lost their jobs. So we're going to have to go through this whole process of rebuilding the health industry post-COVID, because right now they're just focusing on this most problematic issue that they're dealing with. The second part that I think is going to happen is that as we begin to get smaller, mid-sized tech companies, we are going to need more of the absorbing of the local labor locally into those jobs. So those skills are really important. One of the things that this region hasn't done, and Becky has heard me talk about that many, many times, is this whole idea of entrepreneurship zones and doing innovation zones and trying to support through purposefully to attract smaller firms in those categories to our area, because also it suggests subcontracting potential for the larger companies and getting to know us. So that potential is there. We are, as a university, we are graduating significantly more engineers and computer programmers than they are absorbed locally. So what you want to do is to prevent that. Because frankly, if majority of the students who come to University of Washington Tacoma are local and they're not provided local jobs, you're going to end up exporting experts. So that's one of the things that there's an urgency to build that. The final piece of this is that I want to sort of be cognizant of that. I think over time, this region would have to think about one other factor. And I haven't even this topic is too big for me to address it here. And that is transferring of the skills. We have now, over the last 2 years, seen more and more research coming out about how smart it is for regions who are doing that to do skill transference capability. In other words, one of the challenges of my generation, and I'm just going to point to me, this is the only time I can pick on somebody, I have to pick on myself. When we lose a job, we look for an identical job with the same title. So if I'm a teacher, I look for a teaching job. If I am a cleric, I'll look for a clerk. It has to say clerical before I apply. Well, one of the things that we're seeing in the national economy and the regions that are succeeding is when actively the region begins to talk about skill transference. So if you are a driver, a truck driver, what other jobs can you do if you lose that driving job, right? What are all the other categories of work that you can do? Well, people who don't know that, they don't know what to look for. So therefore, you're going to see unemployment that could have been easily prevented by somebody providing insights about how to shift. And so one of the things that we are seeing, and this research is available, is industry to industry and occupation to occupation skill transference capability. So you can see if you lose a job here, there are 5 more over here. You should be applying for 5 different kinds of job, not the same job that you lost, right? So this is an area that in a county with an unemployment rate that consistently stays high compared to national averages, we need to have a better emphasis on that. Because to me, it doesn't make sense. Like after manufacturing job losses, there should have been an emphasis about how to translate those blue-collar workers into different sectors of economy that their skills, with a little bit of tweaking, could have adapted and could have been employed. It's really leaving workers out of the equation. And it's not good for a region to have workers and not really trying to figure out how to get them jobs. Does that make sense? I gave you a big answer to a short question.
It makes perfect sense. Thank you.
And if you're interested, Federal Reserve last summer published some materials. If you want on skill transference, I can look for it and send it your way.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Becky, did you see that presentation or that report from Federal Reserve?
I have not seen that yet. No.
Okay.
I have not. So, Ali, I have a question follow up on what you had just talked about in the types of skills and transference of skills. What changes that you're aware of are being made in educational systems and other companies that are maybe trying to think about that and helping workers to be flexible in that? What kind of work is being done right now on that you're aware of?
So, so I want to separate what education system is doing, and then what is the responsibility on the other side of it, right? Because when we do the work, we can't hire them; we're just getting them ready. So there has to be a handoff. So there are 2 things that universities as a whole are doing, and we are looking at it systematically ourselves. One is what's called adult learner education, which essentially means that there's a person out there that may not want a degree, but they're retraining. In other words, they don't want to come back to university to get another degree. What they want to do is a 1-year program or a 2-term program, which gets them to the next job. So we are looking at that. And knowing we've known this for quite some time, that even those students who we are training right now, most likely they will change jobs 3 to 4 times in their lives, which means that they have to be lifelong learners. In other words, we tell them, you need to always come back and do something a little bit more or go somewhere else. You don't need to come to us. So that's one side of the issue. We are looking about these opportunities for training that are not degree focused, but might be certificates or acknowledgements. The second part that we are looking at is what's called micro-credentials. And micro-credentials are 2 or 3 courses, not a whole year of commitment, where 2 or 3 courses gives the students, whoever comes in through that training, that acknowledgement. So if you do a Google on micro-credentials, you will see that in the job market nationally, they're becoming very important. Employers are actually welcoming that because somebody shows up with a micro-credential that says they're good at this. It doesn't say what degree they have. It just tells you what all they can do. In business schools, they have been doing that for a while too. Now, all that said and done, they still don't have a job when they finish with us. So we need a region that actually says, okay, how are we going to employ these folks? Otherwise, they're not going to come. Why should they come, spend more time with us if nobody's going to hire them or acknowledge that?
Any other questions?
I'm curious, Linda, and Dr. Modarres. it seems to me like Lakewood, specifically in our region, has become quite a distribution hub for all kinds of companies. And we're seeing, lots of warehouse space being built and used. And I guess I'm just curious, what that, you know, whether that leads to more companies, being attracted to this area, or if we're just sort of seen as a little stopping off point, and what we would need to do to really capitalize on that.
You want to answer? Should I answer, Linda? So one of the things that COVID-19 taught companies like Amazon is that they needed a lot of warehousing places. So warehousing has become a national thing. So you are not alone in that. The idea was that in the past, the level of shopping was not high enough to put a warehousing place in every location. But in a region like ours, it makes sense to have distribution centers, right? So that's how you should be looking at it. They don't by themselves necessarily, in my opinion, humble opinion, they don't necessarily translate to additive jobs. In other words, they don't have a multiplier effect. They have a little bit, their multiplier effect is small. It's not zero, but it's not huge. The second part of this equation is this. Amazon has a lot, and I'm picking on Amazon for a second. Amazon has a lot of non-distribution functions and jobs. When you begin to see those jobs distributed, that's the first indication that they're willing to actually take their central offices and distribute them. Otherwise, one of the challenges that we will have is that regions like ours have to set aside a lot of land for warehousing, and you don't want to. The income isn't bad, but remember that eventually there will be competition over that as well. And so that's one of the challenges that a region has to think about beyond warehousing. Typically along the freeway, if you look at the I-5 corridor, we've done that historically. It's jobs. I'm not saying no to them. I'm just saying that we need a little bit more.
It is a little disheartening when we see retail continue to slim down and narrow down in our community, and to see these hubs, if you will, of warehouses that are sprouting up everywhere. It visually and I think emotionally, you get a visceral reaction when you think, oh, how's that changing the landscape of retail? Not only in our community, but throughout the country. And so it's, I guess the numbers will end up speaking for themselves. But and as you know, we represent primarily small businesses, and when we see one or two small retailers go down, it's positively crushing. And so I think that if anything, looking at the numbers and seeing where that takes us in the next several years will, I guess, be more proof positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other questions for Dr. Alley? I'll call you Dr. Alley. How's that? I can't not call you doctor. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Whatever you're comfortable.
No other questions?
All right.
Well, then I want to thank you again, and I'm sure everybody else would like to thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us today.
Thank
we hope
you.
to see you again in the future.
Good luck with you all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. I know that Travis said that he's willing to entertain any questions that anyone might have. If you have any questions, if you have any follow-up, or would just like to schedule an appointment with him to go over the programs, because you have a ton of them, not just health insurance, standard health insurance, but you've got all kinds of different programs programs that you offer to businesses and individuals, Travis?
Um, we do some groups. We don't really do the individual one. I think we could probably work something out with
Okay.
the repairs, but we specialize in at least mostly groups. So, and we also have some new administrative features that we're offering to our clients. So, HR services, employee navigator services that allow them to manage their health, their dental, and you can integrate it with what you currently have. So, if you have ADP, if that's something that a lot of people are already comfortable with and doing their payroll through, our we pay for these services and we offer them at no cost to our clients. So it's a great way that if someone was trying to streamline that medical process to new hires, have something where they can manage it, look at through an app on their phone and be able to handle it. It takes a lot of load off of the employer, not having to meet and sit down with every guy and guide them through like a paper application or calling up the broker or the medical company. Once you get some of these integrated services with your payroll, it really allows the employees to look at their paychecks, see what they're getting in there in a much more streamlined manner, as well as be able to enroll themselves when they become eligible. So there are a lot of great options that we have. We've also can do some life insurance as well, and we do that in individual or group term policies. So those are things that if owners or employees want to talk to us about at their own personal cost and no cost to the employer, we do that as well.
Okay. Travis, how about if you put your telephone number in the chat box as well as your email? And anyone that wants to, if you just send that, put that out to the group, can you do that?
Yes, I can.
Okay. That way, if anyone feels like giving you a call, because I'm sure that not a lot of people want to talk about their insurance plans with the group, but if you have a phone number and an email where people can follow up, that would be great.
Yeah, of course.